Exposing our bits on stream.
Look, I just thought usually you want to have a bit at the start of the stream. And
EOS. No exposing your own bits on stream.
okay, well, turns out that was a bit.
You got me once again.
I did. Can we just get a clap going before the episode? But stop. Be professional.
Okay, sorry.
Hello there, everyone, and welcome to Tapcaf Transmissions, the only Star Wars podcast. This is still true. Have you heard of any since the last episode?
I heard that some people tried to make another one, but there wasn't enough interest. So yeah, we are still the only Star Wars podcast. Oh, Corey?
Yes?
My OBS stopped recording.
Your OBS stopped recording?
Yeah. We're going to need to restart the recording. I'm sorry.
Or your Audacity stopped recording?
Sorry, my Audacity, yeah. Sorry. My Audacity.
Okay, so we'll restart that then.
Let's just do 3, 2, 1. We'll skip the clap. It'll be fine.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to try this. You do the 3, 2, 1 this time. I can't handle that much pressure.
3, 2, 1, go. All right, Sorry guys. Small technical issue there. I think I dropped my book on the pause key. I mean on the space bar. It's a big book. What a great cold intro for the podcast.
So Eck is going to work on his basic skills like holding books during this podcast. I hope that's acceptable for everyone.
I wasn't even holding it. It was just on my desk.
How did you drop something you weren't even holding?
Well, okay, so it's sitting on my desk, right? I kind of leaned it to take a look at all of these beautiful Chiss names. And
it does have a dramatis personae. That's accurate. And that's actually
I leaned it back down, and yeah, I think I must have put it on the space bar.
This is the first physical book I've read for the podcast in quite some time, actually. Even though I've had a lot of the physical books, I've ended up just reading ebooks. And for this one, I decided that just listen to that sound there. That's the sound of petting a book. But I'm going to have to reintroduce the podcast now.
Okay.
So this is a podcast for those of you watching on YouTube right now. We don't usually interact with chat very much during these because it is a podcast recording, but at the end we do take questions. So we are reading the entire time, but just know you have our passive disapproval.
I don't read. I don't care about them.
Eck can't read. That's
true.
Okay. So, but yeah, let's get ready. Let's go. Are you prepared?
Okay. Yep.
Do you remember all the character names?
No.
Oh yeah, you read the book?
I listened to the book.
Okay, then recite it from memory for me.
Thrawn, Mythron Neurodo, Myth Family Merit Adoptive.
All right, I believe you. I believe you.
Okay.
Hello there, everyone, and welcome to Tapcaf Transmissions, the only Star Wars podcast. I could do the bit we did again, but Eck ruined it with technical difficulties.
Yeah.
But I, Corey, am joined as always. I was going to say as usual, by my phenomenal, competent co-host.
Competent.
Yes, downright acceptable all the time, Mr. EckhartsLadder. How are you doing, Justin?
I'm pretty well. I've got a little issue with my toenail right now that's not very epic. I don't know if we want to get into that on the stream.
Is it the same one that you dropped the patio stones on?
Yeah, I dropped a patio stone on my toenail. My toenail broke. I got stitches through it. I pulled the stitches out like you're supposed to. Now the toenail's falling off, and I can't really walk very well, and I have to be on antibiotics, and I'm probably just going to chop my whole foot off and just be done with it.
That seems like a good way to handle it.
Adapt, overcome.
Yeah. So
no, for real though. The other day, I had my foot up on the on my I don't know, my little coffee table in my living room.
Yeah.
Gus came up with 2 fingers, squeezed my toe, and I screamed.
I don't like this. I don't like this story.
I screamed. Yeah, it was not fun.
Yikes.
Not fun.
Nope. Can I please forget that story?
I won't talk about it anymore unless you ask.
All right,
but
I'll consider it for later.
What we should talk about before we get into the book is any interesting and neat Star Wars news that may or may not be going on this week. Corey.
I honestly, like, I was talking to Dana before the stream, and I forgot that we streamed Fall Guys last night. So maybe there was. I don't remember anything happening.
I mean, there was some shots of the Mandalorian, like some promo images. Did you catch those? Spoiler alert,
I
he
saw
still
the
looks
front
like,
of the. I saw like the magazine cover
yeah,
thing. That
he
was.
still looks like the Mandalorian. I mean, there's
Yeah, a
nothing
lot of it was
truly
just like, okay,
groundbreaking here.
it's.
Yeah.
But was there anything else that that caught your eye?
Besides for the beautiful blue outline of this book, Squadrons did go gold today. So
Right,
that's
that's
going to be
true.
released. Despite COVID and all that other malarkey, Squadrons is going to come out on time.
Yeah, that is pretty epic.
Little light in the darkness. It's that and my unborn child is the only two things getting, and Gus, I guess, and Kelsey. Those are only four things getting me through the year.
No,
Murphy and Remy, they're not doing it for me anymore. The cat certainly not doing it anymore.
All right, me and Charlie are just we're out, I guess. That's fine.
You guys are above the dogs, but below my family.
Still offended.
Fair enough. So yeah, let's talk about Star Wars, Thrawn, Ascendancy, Chaos Rising by Timothy Zahn, #1 New York Times bestselling author. I am just reading the front cover of the book right now.
You forgot to say Thrawn Shadow Dragon. Thrawn Shadow Dragon actually sounds like a book I'd read.
I would, yeah. That sounds epic. But this is, of course, book 1 of the new Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy. And we are going to be going heavily into spoilers. This is I think, probably the earliest we've ever covered a new book.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know what's going on, we will be going into full spoilers about everything in this book. And there are some major things that you can spoil, I guess. The thing.
Well, do you want to, before we do that, do you want to just give like a quick spoiler-free thumbs up, thumbs down, maybe 2 sentences? Because the podcast will be almost entirely going into huge spoilers. For anyone who's with us right now, if you want to just get our thumbs up, thumbs down, like our recommendation or not, idea. We'll do that. You can head out, read the book, come back, and please make sure you come back. Like, it is crucial that you come back. We'll stop talking for like 3 seconds. After we give our recommendations, you can come back at that point. You have that time to read the book, and then we'll keep going.
Yes.
So, Justin, you first.
You ever wondered whether anyone's like lost their virginity listening to this podcast? Just as an aside before I give my...
Well, we know someone was in surgery while listening to the podcast, or performing surgery while listening to the podcast. So I'm going to say without that wasn't... It was the same situation?
Yeah. Why is it with the surgery, without a doubt, the losing virginity thing?
Well, it just seems like that's...
Do you need to talk about your past hospital experiences?
I haven't been to a doctor in years, thank you. But no, I mean, like, that just seems like the less likely thing.
You really think that? Never mind. I'm not going to insult our viewers or myself. Yeah. For me, I'll just say thumbs up. Enjoyable book. I'm interested in the trilogy.
If your second kid wasn't conceived while listening to back episodes of Tapcaf Transmissions, I don't know. Why are we even doing this?
Whenever Kelsey's not in the mood, all I do is I say, "Hey Google, play Spectre of the Past on Audible," and the second Mark Thompson's voice comes up and starts, reading.
Well, how are you supposed to perform without the mental list of how attractive Corran Horn would find?
I'll be like, tell me about those Bothan saboteurs.
Anyways, what did you think of the book?
I liked it. I listened to this one fully on Audible. It was a good way to listen to it. The only problem was like there are a lot of Chiss names, and there's a lot of like I hardly remember any of the alien names in this book. I think we were kind of talking about that last night. Otherwise, though, really, I enjoyed it. It'd be a thumbs up. I'm probably gonna give it a B. I think.
Okay, you're jumping way too far ahead with that, and I don't appreciate that.
All right, you go ahead then.
I very love it.
Really?
So
that's good.
If anyone's been following since the our coverage of the Thrawn trilogy, there were some kind of specific issues that I had with that, where I thought like there were ways that Timothy Zahn handled Thrawn better as a character in some of the later stuff, and this kind of is almost like a middle ground of the stuff that I liked about the original Thrawn trilogy as well as the second Thrawn trilogy, and just how he's handled as a character there. So some of the stuff that I thought was kind of had some rough edges in the Thrawn trilogy, I feel like he's improved as a writer enough that he's kind of fixed the issues I had with some of that. Like the stuff where Thrawn is like an impenetrable art genius, you still get that character trait and that reason for why he's as good at what he does as he is, but it's presented in a way that I feel like ends up being better. So
yeah, all right, that's probably as far as we can go without talking about spoilers. So if you guys don't want to be spoiled, leave now. I'll give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3.
If you like Up on Flight, read this book.
Okay, if you like Up on Flight, read this book. The one thing that I wanted to say that was a spoiler is I had no idea where this book was going to fit in on the timeline. As I was a little surprised to find out that it fully intersected with Thrawn Alliances. Like Thrawn Alliances takes place within this book.
Yeah. And I actually kind of thought it would be set before where Outbound Flight would have been set comparatively.
Me too. Yeah,
and
that was my guess.
It's actually set immediately after and essentially directly references the events of Outbound Flight. Like, it does directly reference the events of Outbound Flight. Obviously, Outbound Flight is part of the Legends continuity and not necessarily canon, but by implication, a lot of those events are brought back in.
Wait, which events from Outbound Flight are brought in?
All of them. It's kind of like right at the start where we're hearing where Thrawn is coming from.
Control F was one of the things I Googled.
It doesn't say Outbound Flight.
Okay. It does in the Star Wars books by Timothy Zahn at the beginning.
Yeah. Okay.
Just saying.
Thanks.
No, I missed this, so
yeah. So there's later on in the book, there's reference to Thrawn getting command of Picket Force 2, which is his task force in Outbound Flight. But right at the start, when we're hearing where he's coming from,
and that's in a memory, right?
Yes, that part is in a memory.
So he had it before the book, because parts of the book. Let's just explain that before we move on. So there's the main storyline, then there's also memories, which like they go all the way back to when Thrawn was a cadet. So we should just make that clear.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But yeah, so somewhere near the start, I can't remember exactly where is. I think it might even be in chapter 1. But you hear about Thrawn coming back from his mission and how he was kind of in trouble for losing all this alien technology, which is the Vagari interdiction thing, I believe. Having this kind of botched mission almost, and there was a reference to his brother dying. I don't think they use Thras's name specifically, and they don't directly reference characters like George Cardass or anything, but it is very heavily like this is essentially what he would have written as a direct sequel to Outbound Flight, and it seems like he intended to do that. Because one of the things with Timothy Zahn is that he doesn't like being beholden to other people's work. So essentially, when he's writing his stuff, he considers his. This is
like the Timothy Zahn expanded universe.
Yeah, and to him, that's what's important, and so that kind of comes through here, and it pretty much lays out that like this is right after Thrawn and Ar'alani are coming back from exploding some CIS stuff. It
had been ages since I had read that, so I guess I just missed most of those references.
I don't have an ebook version, but
Jacob said I do. So if you
was Thras mentioned by name?
I don't see the word Thras in here.
Just Control F brother, and you should probably.
I've got like a weird like early publisher's review, so it's not. Let's see.
But anyways, there's that stuff, and we can.
Yeah, interesting. Okay,
so maybe I should I was thinking maybe I'd do a video on that, and I thought that's too. But I guess if you didn't get it, then maybe it's kind of.
I didn't get it at all, so I guess we're gonna need to read Outbound Flight again sometime soon. Because that's a really good book.
Yeah. And
so read Outbound Flight and read Thrawn Alliances.
Like my one of like I usually put Outbound Flight as one of my like top Star Wars books before, and because I kind of felt like it did a similar thing with Thrawn, where you got a better explanation of who he was, and the character was handled better. That was uh, kind of continued on here, but done even better with like Chiss as a whole. Because the presentation of Chiss in Outbound Flight and in previous iterations of things, kind of they're hard to grasp as characters. Like they're too aligned with what their cultural ideals are presented as, so you kind of lose them as individuals. Uh, and
I
in
found that was kind of
this,
true of the Empire of the Hand as well.
yeah,
Yeah. Sorry, but
and I think this handles them much better, where you get the idea of like this is how their culture set up, these are their institutions, and then these are how the individuals kind of see themselves fitting within that, and how Thrawn plays around with those rules, and how he's able to get away with as much as he is when he is clearly flaunting them all the time.
Yeah, for me, like the Chiss are kind of similar. There's also some pretty big differences. Didn't both Legends and Canon sort of have the Chiss being weird about technology, don't they? Especially droids.
Yeah.
I think Legends didn't the Chiss also, weren't they kind of anti-Force in Legends as well? Which I
don't know
don't
that they
think,
were they anti-Force?
or maybe they just didn't know anything about it. I can't remember.
I feel
it's
like
all really
they
starting
generally
to blend
weren't
together.
shown to have much in the way of Force talent. Like it was considered rare that shit, what's her name? She's the CIS Supreme
The
Commander.
CIS,
And yeah, there was some like Chiss Force user stuff that went along with that where she was trained, but and it's been so long since I've read about that.
Severance
That could be
Tan.
really, yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
That I'm definitely fucking up that lore a lot, but there was some stuff with that existed, but it wasn't really a huge connection that was ever made.
Yeah, I will say though, like this book is a lot of world building. I was at times unhappy with the world building because I guess I wanted more straight up, I wanted more from like a like an all-knowing narrator, I guess, where most of the world building is just done through the Chiss and about the family and stuff. And you're kind of put into the position of like just people who are in the Chiss ascendancy, so you don't really learn a lot of the mysteries about the region, I guess, if that makes sense. Um, but I did the unknown region has never really been portrayed in this way. I don't think
No.
it's almost like feudal kingdoms in a way.
Well, you do kind of get that from some source books before, but it's just such an untouched area of the lore where having like this much description of different groups and how they interact is definitely rare. Like usually it's when we do get stuff from it, it's like everything that's from the unknown regions has to be this secret mystery that's untouched by all the other secret mysteries. And then there's the Chiss somewhere in there, and they kind of do what they want. And maybe there's some stuff that threatens the Chiss or is there for the Chiss to kick around. But here you get a much better picture of like, it is this vast collection of different mini nations all interacting with their close neighbors, but no one's really able to get around well enough for there to be a huge interacting system. Whereas before in Legends, you have stuff like the Rakatan Archipelago that lasts up until even the modern times. And like the world's conquered by the Lagubra, but not much sense that there's actually stuff that happens there.
Well, I think one other major problem that Star Wars has whenever they introduce unknown regions or whatever else is that they spend a lot of time talking about how isolated this part of space is, but then in a book or whatever else, it'll be like the Millennium Falcon flew to this planet far deep into the unknown regions. You know what I mean? Like they set up this, but they never follow through. But in this book, you know, it really does a good job of showing that there is this huge separation between the unknown region, what they call chaos in the book, and the rest of the galaxy, which Thrawn calls lesser space, which I thought was quite funny. Because like this is taking place at like the height of the Clone Wars, and they don't really even know anything is going on. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah, it was cool to see all the different alien species. I did, as I mentioned, I sort of had trouble kind of differentiating all of them. But that might just be kind of problems with how I read.
Yeah,
rather
I
than
feel like
anything
we
in the
got
book
a
itself.
decent amount of information about like
Hmm.
uh, the Garwians in that like really they're the only ones that got much information about. The others like the
Well,
potatoes and the
yeah,
ones,
the
they're basically just there to get shot by people.
well,
Well,
we do
the
get
the
a bit of
vac.
the Garwians and the what are they called again? The Luwayans? Yeah.
Well,
Uh,
they just exist for the Garwians to shoot at, and
yes.
uh, the Vac Combine, I think it's called. They get a little bit of
I
development
kind
as
of
well.
liked them. They were probably my favorite because you asked me on stream last night which ones are my favorite. I like the Fat Combine, especially kind of at the end.
Hmm.
But I gotta say, I thought it was a little weird how they played into. So there's sort of this thing that's hanging over much of the book because, as we mentioned earlier, the book goes into the modern day issues that we'll talk about, but also Thrawn's past, and we know that he's got one kind of blotch on his military record that it's like part of the reason why he's part of the he's not born within the Chiss ascendancy is ruled by these 9 families, and these are the 9
Hmm.
most important families, and there's lots of prestige to being in these families, and he's basically adopted into the Myth family, which is why he's called Myth Ra Naruto. Although in this book he goes by a slightly different name for some of it, um, Myth Ra Naruto,
Just
Myth Ra
Nuru.
Nuru, yeah. Um, And I assume the difference is when he becomes like I assume the distinction is made based on what level of family status he has, but
I don't think so. I think it's entirely. I think it's something about a different name. We'll probably find out more about that in the next book,
hmm
because the Nuru part was part of his name when he was introduced.
hmm
Like when we're going to pick him up, and he's known as Vuron,
right,
because he's part of a different family, and then the myth gets changed, and he becomes Thrawn,
yeah.
which is why almost every character is Thr something. Uh,
The Aralani one was weird. Like her nickname was like was it like
Liara,
wasn't it with a Z? Wasn't it like yeah, it was Ziara because her
Ziara,
name
yeah,
was Iziri Ar Alani.
yeah.
Um, so just naming conventions are weird, which is something we already know. I don't think Legends ever went into that much like about it really. I think
No,
we
not
knew that there
necessarily.
was like that was their full name basically, but
Yeah, because
funny
in
too. I
Legends there was the Naruto family was one of the ruling families as well. So the fact that
hmm
Thrawn was Mithra Naruto, because
yes.
like Timothy Zahn introduced some of them, and then I think the Unknown Region source book is where they all got named
hmm
or something similar, and it
hmm
seems like there was a lot that was set up there that wasn't really what he was going for. So there was some strange stuff that happened, but we get like a full listing of all the royal family or all the ruling families
Yeah,
in the
I
start
thought
of the
that was
book, which is
nice.
nice.
Yeah. Um, I do kind of enjoy the I do kind of enjoy the family interaction. Like it's always frustrating because a lot of what Thrawn books come down to is Thrawn's really smart and capable, and he's basically fighting against his own faction most of the time. So this is definitely like in that sense, the family dynamics is something we've seen before, but this kind of introduces an extra element into it
Yeah,
because we've also got on one hand, the Chiss are very limited in how they um, can fight because they've got this whole no first strike doctrine,
yeah,
um, which is interesting. And then, of course, there's always all these family drama, especially between the 9 major families. What do you think the idea behind the no strike first doctrine is? Just not to like what do you think the Chiss philosophy behind that is?
the idea is basically like if they make themselves powerful enough to make it clear that they will never attack unless
Mm-hmm.
directly provoked,
Yeah.
then there's never an idea that in order to achieve whatever other goals in the region
Mm-hmm.
that they need to that another faction needs to also attack the Chiss ascendancy if they're
Yeah.
going to go after someone else, where then that kind of factors in a lot to this, where it's like they're trying to take
Mm-hmm.
over the Vac Combine who are nearby, and they're taking over all these people nearby. But the Chiss, I guess, feel like if they are just 100% disengaged, and they make it seem like it's too big of a risk to take them on directly, then if they don't bother getting into alliances with other people and get involved in what seems like a very chaotic, very violent region, they're just, or without any sort of like overriding structure, that's the safest thing for them to do. Because if they go out there doing what Thrawn wants or what Aralani would want, and how she kind of develops her perspective on the other denizens of the unknown region, where Thrawn sees them as a way that could help protect the Chiss, or Aralani like legitimately cares about them as people, crazy idea.
Yeah.
Then there is the implication that like, oh, if some group wants to go after the Vac Combine, they have to deal with the Chiss as well, because the Chiss could become scared and attack. So there's no threat of like do whatever you want, just leave us alone. We're going to be really powerful, but we're not building up this power to attack you. We just want everyone to know we're going to stay here.
They take it very seriously, and that's one of the things, because Thrawn is kind of just a general security. Like he does want to just protect the region as much as, not as much as the Chiss, but alongside the Chiss. Like he doesn't like standing by and seeing people die. So
that's kind of left a little bit nebulous, where we get that scene with Aralani and Thrawn, where they're asking how each other kind of see the other people in the unknown regions, and Thrawn like assets and potential allies, potential enemies, where like he definitely cares more about them on an individual level than maybe he lets on, or maybe the other Chiss do. Because like the Chiss is a very insular, xenophobic society. They are 100% them first and nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. So I guess my kind of lead into this was, throughout this book, we've got this, event that's kind of a blotch on Thrawn's record. How did you feel like that was handled? Because for me, like, I kind of went back and forth on whether the issue was that original. Basically, Thrawn helps out one alien race, beat another one. He gives them like secrets to.
Yeah, he helps the Garwians beat the Alolans.
Yeah,
and then it turns out he helped the one that was actually being kind of,
because they use that later on to sort of recapture a bunch of planets, and they're aggressive. See, I was reading that, and even when it got to the point of the planetary invasion, I was expecting there to still be something else, I guess. Like, I thought there might be, I don't know, like, I thought they were saving some, like, extra surprise, I guess. Because even Aralani thought he did the right thing at the time.
Yeah, but it's more, I think it was set up more that his failure, like, the Chiss would see his failure as the intervention, and you're kind of set up to think that it's this big other thing. But for him, the failure wasn't the intervention. It was that he intervened in a way that showed a misunderstanding of the actual situation. So there's those two dimensions to it, where everyone thinks he fucked up. It's just where, like, there's no, it's not a division that's as simple as like he either made a mistake or didn't. It's that everyone agrees he made a mistake. It's just how you see the nature of his mistake is what kind of tells us the most about you as a character. Like, do you think he was wrong to intervene, or do you think he was wrong because he misread the people and kind of got all these other people killed? That, like, the Chiss don't care fundamentally whether the Garwians or the win, but Thrawn does, because that was his misreading the situation.
Yeah, and that's kind of that ties into another major thing that goes throughout this book that wasn't really an element of Legends, and that's that Thrawn is an expert at military strategy, but very, very poor, if not inept, when it comes to political strategy. Yeah. And I guess when I was reading this book at first, I was like, I couldn't remember to what degree that manifested in other books. I was like, is this something that Thrawn is putting on to seem ignorant? And I, like, remember kind of wondering that a bit previously, but in this book it's pretty clear that no, he does have real deficiencies. I'm not 100% sure how I feel about all of that, because he has all the tools to do what he needs to. Like, he shows a remarkable understanding of alien cultures and whatever else, but in the end, I guess he just doesn't understand how beings work politically, and it ends up costing him in that situation with the aliens. And it kind of makes him navigating the highly politicized, Chiss ascendancy with the ruling family is difficult, and later on, we see that he struggles. Like when in I think Thrawn treason, maybe when he's dealing with like the construction of the Death Star and stuff, he's kind of trying to figure out how all that stuff works.
Yeah, I think it's kind of making him socially unaware in some ways. Like in other ways, he picks up really easily on what people are doing, but there is still the lack of awareness for the consequences of his actions, or it's a mix of lack of awareness and lack of caring about the consequences of his actions, where his expectation is that everyone is going to put aside whatever their personal gain is for the good of the situation. And that's where the disconnect is, I guess, where he can't really see the division between personal interest and what he sees as like the good of the ascendancy. And you kind of see that in the way he treats Sherry and Thalius, where on the one hand, he's one of the only people who treats them with any amount of like agency or respect to some extent, but he is also entirely willing to disregard that agency for his own purposes. And like he'll treat
especially
them
at the end. Yeah.
He talks about how he can't he's putting them in danger, but he can't live with not taking the action to save the Chiss ascendancy. He's like, okay, but they don't get a say.
It's funny too because it's interesting because Thrawn in Legends, like in the Thrawn trilogy, he's an expert at, he basically makes himself a new mini empire after reemerging. So now he's got a serious blind spot that he didn't have before, I guess. I don't know. It's interesting.
I think part of that is just he does learn over time. Like he kind of picks up on some of the stuff because we're talking
Even
about
the Imperial era though. Like he still has troubles. Like when he's trying to, like with Krennic, like, and he doesn't really understand the relationships between like Krennic and like others within the Empire, like Tarkin.
But I think it's more of an attempt to kind of still keep a lot of the parameters the same, but explain why he could have been so taken by surprise by Rook. Because I do think, like, even if Thrawn trilogy is not canon anymore, I do think that Timothy Zahn is trying to keep that character consistent, and in his own mind, he kind of still thinks of that story as ending there, I think. So, like, how do you make someone who is so aware of what the broader culture of a place is going to do, or what the broader tendencies of a society will be, and even the tendencies of an individual in certain cases, and so tactically brilliant, how do you make him then fall for the fact that maybe the people that he's oppressing are going to be upset with him and don't use those as your bodyguards? And you kind of just take away his ability to see how individuals fit within the groups that he's analyzing, and how like Leia's interaction with like having one person come in and say, hey, maybe this is bullshit, wouldn't impact the Nogri's ability or willingness to work for him.
That makes sense. So I guess we should talk a little bit about the most important thing, and that is the Thrawn stands that harassed me on Twitter because, okay, first of all, did you think there was any subtext of like, not an actual romantic relationship between Arlani and Thrawn, but like, do you think the book played with that a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. So like, I tweeted, we're going back. I tweeted, oh, can't read that post anymore because I've been blocked. Just a second. Okay, I tweeted. I can't get it all. Everyone that I'm trying to go back through my posts and read them, but I'm blocked everywhere. Just one second. I want to start from the beginning. Oh yeah, I said me reading Chaos Rising. I actually wrote Chaos A Rising. Spelling mistake there. And waiting for Thrawn and Arlani to hook up and make beautiful Chiss babies with that thing of Jack Nicholson nodding really creepy like. And yeah, I liked it. Everything was fine until CEO of Thrawn's Prostate said, super gross, my dude. Write all the fan fiction you want, but it's clear in the text that they're friends. I said, shut up. If you don't read subtext, I shouldn't have said shut up. If you don't read subtext in like half of their flashback scenes, you're blind. Either way, they're fictional characters. It's not gross. Then I said something about how their name was CEO of Thrawn's prostate. So maybe they shouldn't be pearl clutching me about fictional characters and their relationships.
Yeah.
And then she said, it is gross when you misread characters so badly that you view them as breeding stock. I was just like, what? Anyway, so that person doesn't follow me, of course. And then out of nowhere, there's like 3 or 4 other people that start following me, and I find out that these are all like really hardcore Thrawn stans who like, well, that woman's name was CEO of Thrawn's prostate. There was also, where are they? One of them had Hunky Thrawn as their header and described themselves as being in love with Thrawn. It's just like,
So
there's this whole
jealousy.
I think it's because there's a big Thrawn Eli Vanto stan community. Like people want that relationship to be a thing. So by me kind of suggesting that Arlani and Thrawn have that subtext, it's, you know, kind of ruining that. But it's just, there's like this whole side of the Star Wars community that like, I knew Raylos were a thing. I didn't know like Thrawn fans were a thing to that degree.
Yeah. I mean, if you're coming from a perspective where like there is just a lot of like hardcore erotica fan fiction, and then you see your tweet without any context of who you are, then actually no, the more context you have of who you are, the more likely it goes kind of like this, just that you're not necessarily the one making the fanfic, but I can see how maybe you'd get to that conclusion. But if your name is Thrawn's prostate, then you're probably just upset about which characters are involved in the fanfic rather than that someone is suggesting Thrawn be in a romantic relationship of some kind.
And it was so aggressive too. One of the people said, Timothy Zahn, the author himself, you might have heard of him. I have in fact heard of Timothy Zahn. Said they were only friends. If all you can do is read subtext, air quotes, that isn't there between a man and a woman, go jerk off to some fanfic instead. Like, I don't understand.
I mean, there's no subtext of them banging, but there's like a subtext of them potentially going on something that could be a date. Like,
yeah, so like
specifically having one ask the other to go buy them a drink.
Yeah, and there's also there's like 2 scenes where, and yeah, Thrawn
it's not a huge jump to say, like, it's not a necessarily given thing, but it's not a huge jump to make a joke about them, like, maybe hooking up in the next 2 books.
And like Thrawn is, so there's the memory sections, and a lot of the memory sections are about the evolving relationship between Thrawn and Arlani. They meet when they're first in the academy together. So in one of the early ones, after Arlani gets Thrawn off of a really serious charge at school, he basically takes her out, and she's like, she expects to go, I forget what the exact
back to her place for a drink.
Well, that's later. But then before that, they're basically going out on what seems like a date, because she's like, she expected at the very least for there to be drinks. Talks about doing something fun, like going to see a show or something like that. And then, of course, Thrawn takes her to an art museum, and she's like, this is lame.
Yeah.
And then, let me see if I can find the quote here. I don't know if I Control F sticks, I can find it. Okay, so Thrawn tells her all about how he can learn about a person's vulnerabilities from their art. So this is the scene that made me write that tweet. I see, Thrawn said, his voice suddenly subdued. I thought this would be interesting to you. I'm sorry if I waste your time. I didn't say that, Ziara protested, eyeing him as a sudden idea occurred to her, but I'm a practical person, and when I hear a new theory, I like to give it a test. I was thinking a little smaller, she said. Come on. She headed towards the exit. Where are we going? Thrawn asked as he caught up with her. My quarters, she said. I do a little wire sculpting in my spare time to relax. You can study it and see how well you can read my personal strategies and tactics. and I don't know, just and then of course it ends up being that that they go to a dojo and spar for a couple of rounds, but between that and then the scene later where they go off and have a drink together and she's touching his arm, like there's something there. He's just not picking up on it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's kind of how it's presented there. But
it's like he's stupid. No, he's not. He's not stupid. That's rude to say. He's not good at social cues.
hey,
It's not
better than that
stupidity.
to
It's
think
just-
that everything that anyone does with him implies that they're into him.
Agree. That's much better.
But that being said, while we're on this topic, it is nice. It's kind of weird when we're complaining about this with people calling you out for making it sexual. But it is nice to go from the Darth Bane books to this, where
Yes.
there is like a lot of female characters with zero reference, like without it just being.
I don't even know who's
they're
hot
there
or
to-
not.
yeah.
What am I gonna do?
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Yeah, it's nice. I agree. And 3 out of the 4 POV characters are females.
Yeah.
Two girls in a, or two
is
women and a girl, which is
Much better at this than the Darth Bane books are.
Yeah. What else was I going to say?
It's to be fair, hard to do it worse than the Darth Bane books did, especially Path
Yeah.
of Destruction. But
Yeah.
still,
I just got another thing that really pissed me off is that I got called a man baby, which really struck a nerve, and a fanboy, which also struck a nerve. But and a bully. But I don't know. One thing that's really funny.
you're only
though, about
one of those things.
Fuck up. I don't even want to know which one it is. The voice acting in the audiobook is really funny. Aralani has a full Russian accent. Thrawn, of course, sounds just like Thrawn does in Star Wars Rebels. And what's Aralani's assistant on the bridge? What's her name again?
Uwu,
Right.
Wootro, I think.
Yeah.
Wootro.
Yeah, Wootro. She has like a Cockney British accent, and it is so ridiculous. She's like, "Oi!"
I can sort of get the Eastern European
Yes.
thing because like the chun is kind of the words we do have is kind of based on Hungarian, where Scylla, it is Chilla, which is I think it's Hungarian for star. So that'd be the most likely thing that's
Yeah,
based off. So
Aralani
like,
sounds
kinda,
fine. Yeah.
but going all over the place, governor.
Yeah, well, it's like it's just very strange, and I understand you're doing it like he's only got so many voices that he can make, and he's got a lot of characters to go through. Mark Thompson does a good job, but every one of his books always has like one of those like British yokels. Yeah. So I guess we should probably introduce a little bit the actual what's going on in the modern
book
story. We've talked a bit about the past. So the past is really just talking about Thrawn and Arlani's evolving relationship and Thrawn's kind of early successes and failures and whatnot. Then the main conflict is basically there is this attack on Chilla that starts off the book. And it all stems from really they're just trying to figure out, okay, who attacked Chilla and why. And pretty early on, Thrawn, or I think it's actually, is it General Bakif or Thrawn who discovers the, one of them anyway, discovers that there's been a refugee ship attacked, and that leads them on a sort of long hunt, which eventually reveals a species known as the Nicardun, who it turns out are basically they're allying with or annexing all of the alien species surrounding the Chiss ascendancy.
Yeah.
They're basically preparing for an attack, and they're led by Zim the Despot. No, that's not his name.
Yiv the Benevolent.
Yiv the Benevolent.
Yif the Benevolent.
And he's a pretty interesting character. He kind of
who did you picture for like what's because there's something very specific I pictured for him that I think I might have pictured for something else recently. But what was your picture for Yiv?
Trying to think. I kind of imagined like I don't know. I'm trying to put myself back into the. I pictured like somebody because he's always described it. Even in his name, he's General Yiv the Benevolent. I always imagine like a really large guy who's like, he's laughing all the time, but then he like snaps into deadliness. So like Dr. Phil maybe. I'm just joking. I
Like
don't know
my
who
mental
were you
picture for him was always Lur.
Lure?
Yeah, from Futurama.
Oh, I don't wait. Lure, is that who I'm thinking of? Yeah. That's basically, or like Kang and Kodos or something.
Yeah.
Lure is actually a pretty good analogy, I think, or a good reference.
And it was weird because I have like I picture Thrawn as Thrawn, like it's a live action movie in my mind, but I've still got like the Futurama animation for Lur for Yiv, and I don't know, the production value on this movie was pretty terrible.
Picture the original guy who played Jabba the Hutt. Yeah, most of the book is one thing I did have a problem with in this book is that there's so many little things that Thrawn does, and it does, in my opinion, get to be a little bit stale because it's like all of these. He's going to scout something out, or he's going to talk to somebody, or like all of these kind of
Yeah.
little missions.
There's like 3 or 4 times there's a couple people stowed in a fighter or a freighter or a sentry. It's like, okay, you did this already.
Yeah, or like he's going to check out how ships are moving or something.
Yeah.
And I just wish when they had done that, they had injected a little more interesting world building or something. That was my main issue. Like the book, I would almost call the book dry for not significant parts, but parts of the book I would say are pretty dry. Especially because Thrawn and Arlani handle everything so clinically.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I guess, where I would have liked to see more of like the non-existent narrator come in and tell us more about the area.
Well, that's kind of the thing with like the Chiss in Outbound Flight, where they're even more like that. And in this, I feel like they get it. There's a better balance between when they're in professional mode, being like super clinical, and then Thrawn is always kind of that guy.
Yeah.
But when they're in other situations, the other characters who aren't military, or even the military characters in more casual settings, end up kind of dropping that. So you get the sense that it is part of Chiss society, but it's not this society of like purely analytical, bland people.
Yeah, no, I didn't mind the Chiss as a whole. I thought they were interesting. Like Thrawn is even more of an outlier, I think, now than he ever was, which I don't know, is good. Yeah, it's interesting. I like the Chiss, and I thought the what they've done to Chilla was pretty interesting as well, where it turns out that like the majority of the planet, which is supposed to have a population of the billions, has just been straight up abandoned.
Yeah.
They keep like a fake city going there to kind of protect themselves, I guess.
Yeah, so it makes Chilla's kind of descent into iciness much more recent than it was in Legends, because that was a part of Chilla's story.
Because that's why the Chiss are blue, right? In Legends, yeah.
Whereas here, like, it sounds like that's not the case.
I think they say 1,000 years ago.
Yeah,
yeah,
or at least 1,000 years since they started like really moving off. For it.
Right.
That was kind of weird to me. I don't know how you'd keep that secret, because like you live in Chiss society. I guess if there's not much motion between planets in the first place, it kind of checks out. But like you've never met anyone who's ever met anyone who's ever met anyone who's been to Chilla.
It did kind of strain credibility a bit, especially where like they're flying through this portion of the city and there's like fake cars and stuff going by.
Yeah, it was very North Korea, like the border cities.
Yeah, like I like the giant Pyongyang hotel or whatever over there in Chilla's Garden District. Because most people believe that most of the citizens have moved underground. Which and there are still, I think they say like 10 million people living there or something. So it's not
Yeah.
like there's nobody, but it had been like 10 million in the capital city, is what everyone was led to believe.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that scene. I also really enjoyed the scene where they go to the gigantic myth cavern, basically. So, because throughout the whole book, you kind of learn like each royal family has like, or not royal family, each of the 9 ruling prestigious families has like a homestead.
Yeah.
And at first, I was imagining like, okay, they've got some bit of countryside out somewhere. But then I was like, oh yeah, it's Chilla, so they've got a cave somewhere. But it turns out this is not just a cave; it's like a gigantic, like it's a cavern, like
It's like
kilometers
Lando
tall.
City on Coruscant
Yes,
in the dome.
exactly like that. It's got clouds. It's got some sort of artificial sun. If you're just in the cavern and you don't think about it, you might think that you're on the surface, which is pretty cool. I wouldn't have minded more scenes there. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the so because one of the characters goes through the process to become basically the second level within an adopted Chiss family. So we get to see kind of the test she has to go
Yeah.
through.
They all sound kind of lame, to be honest.
Yeah, I was like, okay, she's gonna have to like drain her arm of blood, and it's like, no, she's got to write an exam.
It's basically like a citizenship test with extra steps where like the
Yeah.
bloodborne ones don't have to do this bullshit, but she does as a trial born or as a merit adoptive.
Yes. Yeah. Because so just I do find it's interesting. So basically, how Chiss society worked is that for a while the ruling family, it was basically like just the ruling families had the most power, and it was just bloodline. But now the families are, you can adopt people and basically add them to your family, and you get prestige and whatever else. And at one point we have Arlani's family and Thrawn's original, or not original, his original adopted family, both trying to get him to join them. So it's like, it's interesting to see how they're fighting for, like, it's like, oh, you want more of a presence within Chiss military, then maybe you try to adopt some expansionary fleet officers or whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like there, so to kind of it ties into that, but to kind of get back to the uh, preemptive strike stuff as well.
Hmm.
There was a lot in Outbound Flight. I'd have to go and find the interviews again. And I think there was even a panel where he was talking about it. But essentially, the idea with Outbound Flight, based on when it was written, is that he was talking, like Zan was trying to explore the Iraq War specifically.
Right.
And I know Star Wars was political. This is a shock to everyone. But
Star Wars had a black person in it. It's always been political.
but like that is what
That's a
Outbound
joke.
Flight and the Chiss Society was kind of set up to explore and talk about, and that's what the preemptive strike doctrine was like kind of him doing.
Yeah.
So if I'm gonna try to find the interviews with that again,
Yeah,
but
that'd be interesting. Good video too, probably.
yeah, so there's a lot of that, and I think over the next few books we'll probably the fact that there's no one on Chilla kind of representing this secretive insular society, maybe we'll see a change in that because we don't necessarily know how they end up, and we do get a reference to them not always being like that with respect to a reference to like tour events where the Chiss
Yeah,
were
that
part
was
of
weird.
yeah, because they
Republic and the
talked about
Sith.
how Timothy Zahn was actually consulted on the Chiss in tour. I think that started coming up recently because he's doing that thing on Facebook, right, where he goes through a lot of his memories
Yeah,
of
yeah, I've been watching
involvement and
that.
stuff. So a bunch of that kind of thing has been kind of bubbling up.
Hmm. Yeah, that was an interesting reference. I was kind of surprised to see that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and I mean, even Arlani kind of contemplates the fact that this is before, I guess, she realizes Thrawn's weaknesses, but she's like, well, I can see you changing the Chiss someday, but this is how it is now. She contemplates the fact that the Chiss might not always take such a passive role in the region, um, but
Hmm.
we don't really know a whole lot of what happens to the Chiss after this point. Um, we obviously get a little bit of it in the Imperial era, but you know that context is pretty limited. Is Arlani still an admiral in in the later Thrawn books? I think she
Yeah,
is. I don't
because
think...
she has Steadfast, and that's who
Right.
Vanto gets sent to.
Right.
So the upside down Macross is that's her ship, Steadfast.
Can we talk about ships in this? Because I don't think we've mentioned that yet.
Uh, yeah, there's a lot of ships. There's some names for ships. There's night. I think it's night
Nothing
dragons that
else.
they
Nothing
call.
else. Yeah, Night Dragon Man of War. That's the Chiss, the big Chiss ship. But the Chiss are kind of positioned, like it seems like they are fairly behind like the Republic and the CIS on a
Yeah,
tech standpoint. So
like
like I
shields are this massive invention that
mhm,
really that allows a small freighter to kind of take the brunt of turbo laser
yes.
from uh, a. I'm not sure how big it was intended to be. I think it
This is
was,
a battle dreadnought.
yeah, I think like 600 meters maybe for that. I was trying to suss
Yeah, I
out roughly
didn't
how
even like
long.
imagine that big because I'm just thinking like they've got all these names like Battle Dreadnought and like the Man of War, but it's probably in the end a pretty small ship compared to like what the rest of the galaxy has by this point.
Yeah, like I think it was described as like the uh, Yiv's ship is described as half again as big as the Vigilant. So
Oh, was it? I missed that. I was looking for
yeah,
that, but okay, interesting.
but we never really get any full scale metrics on that.
Mm-hmm.
So they
Yeah,
maybe they're like the size of the Executor.
could be.
I think I'm gonna go with that. All of them are the size of the Executor. Even the ones that are described as being bigger or smaller than other ships, they're all just the size of the
Yeah,
Executor
that
in the book.
freighter that Thrawn piloted by himself and drove into the
Executor, yeah,
bridge at the end. Yeah, Executor for sure.
yeah. Size is relative, and the size relative to everything else is one.
Lots of space out in the unknown regions. Might as well make big ships.
Yeah. Well, that just makes it hard to fly through the chaos because you're gonna
True.
bump into more stuff.
So, speaking of, this is something that's pretty new too. We knew that the Chiss used force sensitive navigators from the
Hmm.
Thrawn books, because Skywalker's is not a new idea. But I don't think we ever knew the extent to which other people used. You know, they're not called force sensitive, but the navigators are clearly using some form of the force because
I
they
think
call it.
Alliances and Treason does mention that
Does it?
it's
Okay.
that's how people tend to get around, or at least that that's the best way to get around, and it kind of ties
Mm-hmm.
into how hyperspace travel works early on in Legends as well, in like the
Mm-hmm.
known galaxy, where like the Rakata hyperspace tech. The main thing is it's not that they need it to go to hyperspace; it's just that because all the lanes shift so much, having a force
And
sensitive
that's all.
person is
Yeah.
necessary for it in the unknown regions, and I think that's a pretty like I really like that way of handling the fact that
Mm-hmm.
there is this big empty space that's unexplored, because like you were saying, if it just Millennium Falcon just shows up in this place with no trouble, like okay,
Yeah.
why? And then you get like the barrier with
Mm-hmm.
Nagal or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't like those as much as the idea that it's just like more shifting, harder to map your way through it.
And they have changed what the unknown region is between Legends and Canon too, because the unknown regions now is much more limited in scope. It's like specifically this one area in the Galactic West, whereas in Legends it was less of a defined area and more just like a state of not being explored yet.
No, it sort of depends because like there was
If you look
a
up like a
hard
Legends
border.
map of the yeah,
There was kind of a hard border, and there was attempts to explain a hard border and like what made the
I
unknown
don't know.
regions
I
fundamentally
feel like
different.
in Legends the unknown regions is much more expansive.
It depend. Yeah, it's much bigger in Legends, but it's not just like it's not been explored. It's like there are it varies a lot more from source to source, but like
Well,
there,
it's different than not being explored, but like the distinction between wild space and the unknown regions has
yeah,
shifted a bit in Star Wars canon,
hmm,
where I think the unknown regions now is one specific part of space rather than a type of space with whatever
yeah,
qualities. I'm saying, like not
yeah.
specifically
There was a
just that.
mix of like that it was different and that it was also unexplored. There was a link there, but it
Mhm.
was kind of nebulous and varied from author to author. Whereas now they
Yeah,
have a much better idea of what they want it to be.
yeah. I'm just looking up like kind of curious to see how like the other RPG guy has. I've got that one saved, but mm, yeah, all it says is beyond the outer rim territories in the galactic disk, a massive area of space. Actually, this one does say specifically Western.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
like there is the Nagal thing where it's
Mhm.
like created a barrier, and then there was stuff to like break the barrier. And how did the barrier get made? Was it Killix and the Rakatans and Celestials? Like, okay, that's.
Mhm.
But then there's also stuff where it's just like, oh, we just haven't been there yet.
Yeah. It's just I don't know. I just feel like I don't know. Maybe I'm misremembering Legends, but yeah.
Well, the problem really is just that Legends didn't have a solid answer for it. It was just whatever that
Like I
current
remember
thing calls it.
specifically, I think it's the Essential Atlas, maybe, which says like the unknown regions comprises more space than the rest of the galaxy put together, or something like that.
Yeah, like there was the initial interpretation of unknown regions as just unknown regions, and that
Mm-hmm.
was like you had the core, mid rim, outer rim, and then unknown regions for a while was also the outer rim because they just didn't know what it was. And there was like
Mm-hmm.
you have mostly in the west, but also some stuff all around. But then
Mm-hmm.
there were also some things like I think the unknown regions source book uh, had it was like no, there's this hard barrier. That's why it's like goes into the core a bit in areas
Mm-hmm.
that you would otherwise expect to be explored almost right away
Yeah.
because it is hard to get in there. It's hard to navigate for reasons we will change multiple times.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like I remember like one random thing is like I think it's the what's it called? The homeworld of the ones changed from the unknown regions in Legends. Now it's in wild space, just like a random
Yeah.
thing I saw on a map. Like the essential atlas is completely unhelpful too, because it says the distinction between wild space and the unknown regions is a simple one. Wild space has been explored with the findings recorded, while the unknown regions have not. Like that's clearly not the only difference. Like if I just
Yeah.
write down, hey, this planet's here, that's not enough to
Yeah.
this term describes all areas that have never been directly surveyed by Republic and Imperial scouts. Like that's, yeah, I don't know. That's clearly. Oh yeah, here's the quote. Well, the aggregate of this territory is some the unknown region creature volume nearly triple the size of settled space, but just 15% of the total stellar mass. So it's not consistent. I
No.
guess is what
No.
you
No. No.
were
No. 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 God.
correct.
God. No. But do you want to? Is there anything else you want to say before we get to maybe rankings and then questions, or?
We didn't talk a lot about. Did you like Cheery as a character? We didn't talk about her much. Cheery and what's the name of her
Thalius,
her yeah. I saw
her
some people
momish.
complaining a bit about the fact that I know there's some people who don't like that character. I saw a little bit of that when I entered the Thrawn stan side of Twitter today.
I mean,
Or
I thought she
like
was like a decent portrayal of a kid that
yeah.
is kind of being forced into a job that they shouldn't be forced into. It's kind of the same thing as the Jedi Order, where like it's easier to see why the Skywalkers are kind of immoral, whereas like you're actually putting these young kids on a warship and they're gonna die. But like
Hmm.
it's the exact same as the Force sensitives in the Republic getting selected as Jedi and put in positions where they're not given a choice. They're just raised in this uh, essentially military or paramilitary position that sure they go out and fight individuals like peacekeepers, but they're still probably just going to get murdered by someone.
Hmm. Yeah, the interaction between the Jedi and or I guess the relationship between the Jedi and the Skywalkers is interesting. One thing that people mentioned is like how it's kind of it's weird how the Chiss kind of just lose their force sensitivity, I guess. Um,
Yeah, there was like the implication that some keep it.
hmm.
No, like not here, but like in other places. I think there was one that
Yeah,
kept it much later.
yeah,
Uh, so that probably exists in some places, especially because there's this societal expectation that it doesn't happen. So maybe there's some of
yeah.
that. But it's kind of just like how there's some species that have like some force related abilities that we see uh,
Hmm.
or are more attuned to the force. So I kind of just see it as that, and maybe there are some other ones that
Just
stay force
that was
sensitive for
something that
longer.
was very kind of like Legends like to me with
Hmm.
like, and I didn't expect to see stuff like that in Star Wars canon with like the Isalamiri or the various other species that were either really susceptible or not susceptible to force tricks. We covered that in Plagueis a bit, but like I never thought we'd see something like I don't think we'll ever see something like the Yuuzhan Vong, for example, in Star Wars canon. But it is interesting. Wonder if we'll ever get an explanation for what's going on there.
Yeah. It's
So
really
I
just going
guess
to come down to whatever the authors decide to put in. And I don't think there's many people that are going to tell Timothy Zahn no for ideas like that.
yeah. So the last thing really that we have to cover, because like we mentioned, a lot of the plot is kind of just Thrawn figuring out what's going on with this greater kind of mystery. But I guess the last question is, who is this Jixtus guy at the end? So there's a navigator, Kiori, who works for Thrawn, but he's also working for Eve the Benevolent. He kind of double crosses Thrawn. He's kind of an unlikable guy because he blames the Chiss for everything, even though it's completely his own doing. But by the end, he's contacted by a mysterious voice, a disembodied voice, which has control of his ship. And he refers to himself as somebody who's kind of been watching what's going on and who's ultimately a danger to the Chiss. And obviously, it's no Minor. No,
yeah.
it's
it's not Manor.
well, that's not how he operated, though. He was more insert himself somewhere.
I'm just surprised he broke the NDA like that.
Yeah, I know. No, I imagine
we're not
it's like
supposed to talk about the new Jedi Order yet.
The new Jedi Order. It's got to be like a Grisk commander, right?
That'd probably be what's most likely. Or Palpatine.
Yeah, I was wondering about Palpatine as well.
I don't think Palpatine would call himself Jixtus.
Yeah, he knows how shitty it is having a lame name with Sheev, so he's like, never do that to myself again.
Jixtus is his middle name. Sheev Jixtus Palpatine. I became a Sith because everyone made fun of me.
Oh, that's hilarious. I wonder, I mean, because there is a bit in I think the original Thrawn book where Thrawn's kind of out, like he's laying out all the shitty dangers and stuff in the unknown regions. And I guess the Grisk is the main thing. There definitely is possible that there is some other force. It's just, I don't know how compelling it is because it's the same issue that I kind of had with the Grisk. Like, we know that ultimately, however big of a deal they were, they kind of fall to the wayside, I guess, unless they, I guess, there could have been another fight going on in the unknown regions this whole time.
Yeah.
Maybe Jixtus is like, maybe he's like a Sith Eternal guy. And, maybe the Chiss are encroaching on Sith Eternal territory or something. I'd be down for that. That'd be interesting.
I think it's kind of why there's such an attempt to emphasize the fact, like, no, what happens locally is a big deal because then we can have it be this big deal for the Chiss and maybe fundamentally reshape Chiss society, but still not necessarily be too weird that it doesn't spill over into the Empire or the Republic. But I kind of feel like that'd be one of the reasons it's not the Grizz, is that it's probably something that's going to be resolved entirely within these 3 books. And maybe there's something else that we kind of see about, like, maybe they're part of that thing. I
feel like there's got to be a hook, like a greater hook. I think you're right. I think he might just be, a Justinian. But I feel like there's got to be some sort of hook from this trilogy to everything else that's going on. It's not enough that Thrawn becomes an Imperial. That's enough for one book, maybe. But not for a whole new trilogy that's disattached from everything else. What do you think of book 2 is gonna? Where do you think that's gonna take us? Same time period, like, because Thrawn's leaving for the Empire pretty soon, I guess, like a couple years now.
Yeah, I think we're just gonna kind of stay within this timeline, and establish the reasons, or more of the reasons that he's sending people back to the Ascendancy later, and hopefully setting up for like another Thrawn trilogy after Endor, maybe in the time of the sequel trilogy where the Chiss are starting to change their ways and come into the galaxy more, and then we have the live action new trilogy of movies that are involving the Chiss with their war against Palpatine's next clones.
Sound like a YouTube comment. Would you be down for a post sequel trilogy Thrawn series or Thrawn book or Thrawn story? Or
How old would
is that too much?
How old would he be by then? He'd be quite old. I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't be that old. He'd be in his 70s or his 60s.
Yeah, I'd be fine with it. No, he's got to be older than that. Because that'd make him like 40 in the Thrawn trilogy.
Yeah, you're right.
And he's in his 70s for that. So he'd be like 90.
Let's see. Thrawn. See if he's got an age.
Because he's about what?
So
22?
this is like 18. This is 18, and he's got to be.
He's got to be like mid
20s. Okay, so 18.
Because he was already at least like 18 55. When he met Thalias the first time, and she was like a little girl. So this is probably 20. Like she's just about 19, 20 maybe. So he's probably just under 30.
Okay, let's just say let's say he's 30. 30 plus 35 years for the 30 plus 18.
Yeah.
Plus 35, 83.
Yeah, so he'd be pretty old, not impossible to be alive as long as he escaped from whale bellies.
I mean, you could easily say that he's in weird space with whale bellies for a decade or two.
Yeah,
with Ezra.
That's
Yeah,
he gets out of that, which he obviously will. They gotta have more stuff with Thrawn, and I feel like him being part of some like integration of Chiss into the galaxy later on would work, and answering for why he was an Imperial maybe in the New Republic from the New Jedi Order. It all comes together. See.
It's just like, okay, so for Thrawn, ever since the Thrawn trilogy, we've known what happens to him. He's had a fate, and everything that's come since then has, like, in Legends anyway, let's talk about Legends first. He's got this clear fate, this clear death point. There's all this material that makes his future interesting, but you always know where the character ends up, dead.
Yeah. Kind of an asshole and dead.
Yeah. But in canon now, he's still alive, and it's really the only time Thrawn has been alive, or has a future that's uncertain. So for me, I'm going to be really frustrated if they've got to somehow write him out of, the universe to make way for the sequel trilogy, I guess.
Yeah, I think they've got to do something with him, either coming out of that in maybe he just immediately goes back to the Chiss and is with them for the entire period of the sequel trilogy, because like the same reason that he wouldn't necessarily have helped the Dark Empire is why he wouldn't want to go back and help the First Order, because it gets rid of whatever redeeming qualities he might have thought the Empire could have as an ally for the Chiss, and is like pure dark side worship for Palpatine. But I don't know. So, do you want to get to the rankings and then our questions?
Sure. Why don't you go first?
Well, I really like the book. It is, in my opinion, some of the best writing and handling of the characters that we ever get from Timothy Zahn. So I am debating somewhere in A or S. I think I'm going to say S.
That's great.
Possibly even high S.
High S. Wow, you liked it that much, eh?
I did.
I definitely get where you're coming from. For me, though, as much as I do love learning about society, I thought the book was really dry at some parts. And I would have liked even more world building. I guess there was more about the unknown regions that I would have liked to have not been treated like it was common knowledge, I guess. Or I guess it's hard to explain. I don't really know what I wanted. But I liked it. I liked Thrawn. I've got high hopes for the trilogy, but I think for me it's got to be a B.
The trilogy?
The trilogy, yes.
Nice.
Yeah. That was totally on purpose.
I get
I'm not just it's I don't know. Like for me, I go back and forth because I do think that like Zahn's writing has continued to improve in many ways, but I just that hook wasn't quite there for me yet. Um, and I was hoping there would be some greater hook to start off the trilogy.
Yeah.
Like even just a mention of Palpatine. I guess Palpatine is mentioned a couple times, but like something to kind of connect. But I guess that's not necessarily what this trilogy is going for. It's supposed to be its own kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, but I
And I
enjoyed
do
it.
feel
I'll
like
give
that
it a
gives it more freedom to not just be like the main problem with the Thrawn trilogy, like the new Thrawn trilogy, the middle Thrawn trilogy, where it's like almost everything is the outcome is known. With this, at least we have some questions about like who are these people, what's the results for the Chiss, even if we kind of know what happens to Thrawn himself.
yeah. I agreed. It's gonna be interesting. I'm really excited to see what comes next. Do we know when book 2 is coming out? Does it ever release date yet?
I don't think so. I assume next
Well,
year, but
yeah. One thing that I just think of like Heir to the Empire, and that's a very high standard to meet. But like in that book, there's a lot of things set up in book 1 that really, really pay off in book 2 and 3.
mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, I'm not sure what could set up, like what set up in this book could really pay off. I think the biggest thing would be like, I gotta check the character page because I forget their names. The Turfian and what was the other guy's name? The one that
Is this Dookie Duke?
yeah, just yeah. So like I think that's going to pay off what we learned about them and the alliance they made. Basically, two rival families.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get a lot more
Arlanas.
internal Chiss issues in the next ones.
Anyway, it's good though. I'm excited. Hopefully, I wonder if we'll see Eli. It'd be kind of cool. I feel like we've really got to before the next book. We're gonna have to cover the Thrawn books on Tapcaf. I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there's a lot that I like just didn't really remember very well.
I don't know. Actually, I haven't read at least one of them.
Did you read
I've
the one
skimmed
that was
them
like
for...
referenced in this book? Like
No.
the Anakin bit?
No.
Oh, okay.
I might actually have only read Thrawn and then I've skimmed the other ones for information on certain things. I don't think I've ever actually fully read both of them.
So like the conversation with Anakin and Thrawn, that's like straight out of the Thrawn Alliance's book.
Yeah, I recognize the
Yeah.
parts of that.
And then so like that 5 weeks where they're gone is basically Thrawn tracking down, like he helps Anakin track down this giant conspiracy about like a secret CIS weapons lab and stuff.
Yeah, because like I've read I specifically looked through all the parts with like the Skywalkers and the kind of nature of the unknown regions from that stuff, because I was doing a video comparing that to the earlier parts of like the earlier periods of Legends space travel. But I think that's the main stuff that I went through for. So we definitely need to do those.
Yes.
But next week we're doing Bane 3.
Yes, hopefully much shorter book than this. I wasn't sure if I was gonna be able to get through this week. I was a busy fella, but got her done.
Yeah, I think it's the shortest of the Bane books, which are always relatively easy to get through.
Yeah.
So
this was like a 15, 16-hour audiobook, and the longest Bane one has been 10 hours.
I think it only took me like 4 hours to read this. So like in text, it wasn't that bad.
Wow. It's 400 pages, I think.
Yeah, but it's big font.
Hardcover or
yeah, I got the hardcover. It's 370 or yeah, somewhere in the 380 range, but it's relatively large font. And then when you get to the memories pages, they're indented a little bit more, I think.
Yeah, you're right.
So it really wasn't that as bad. I was really stressing about it up until yesterday.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were gonna, because I thankfully started well in advance, but when Del Rey sent out the review copy, they were like, "There's a big secret. Don't tell anyone about it."
I don't know what they're talking about.
It's like it's gonna be a big thing.
I no idea.
Yeah,
That Thrawn's in it. Like I don't.
I really your page is not blue.
Is that like?
Like, does your book not have blue pages?
It does.
Okay, that was the secret. That it had blue pages.
Are you fucking
Like,
serious?
yeah.
Like the picture's cool. I don't know. Like the picture at the front. I'm gonna put this on screen. I thought it was a really cool image, but I wouldn't call it a groundbreaking secret. Okay, that's.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that or the Journey to Batu reveal is stranger in messaging than.
I mean, I was a little more excited about the blue pages.
It looks nice. Dana, to be fair, when she saw me reading it, did say, "Ooh, blue edges," and so it was pretty epic. I can't pretend it wasn't.
Do you have a spot on your shelf for such a blue-paged book?
I'll see if I can point it out for the people listening in video. But this is my Canon shelf right there, right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's going right there.
And
Right
if
there.
someone was interested, they could always check out the office tour you did.
That's true. I did do that. But yeah, we have some emails.
Okay.
Did you? Actually, no. You started. You said at the start of the podcast what your ranking was. You said. Did you say B again?
B, yeah.
B,
gonna
okay.
keep that B, yeah.
But we do have our first email. So if you guys have any questions in chat that you'd like us to answer about Thrawn, Ascendancy, Chaos Rising, Timothy Zahn, #1 New York Times bestselling author, then just tag me at Corey's Datapad in chat, and we'll get to those after our email questions. But we're going a little bit long, so we'll probably try to just stick to questions about the book for that one today. But for email, our first email is from Ewan. Hi, Corey and Justin. Got a question. Why did she leave?
Just do be like that sometimes.
Now, this is clearly referring to why Thales didn't go with them on the mission. She needed to do her trials because Thurfine was going to find out.
Yeah, she's very clever. She basically forced his hand when he was trying to play politics. Very much like
Yeah.
Green Machine. It's like the
Here, I'll put it on.
It's like a centimeter of the page that's got a blue outline.
I'll show you guys on the stream there. This is what they look like, and it's
Pretty cool.
yeah.
I mean, I enjoy it. It's fun.
Yeah, it's nice. I would like. I'm not trying to say it's bad. Just that I would not call that a closely guarded industry secret.
They also said there was going to be blue words. I didn't see. I mean, I didn't read the book. I just listened to it, but don't see any blue words.
I think the word blue was in here a couple times, like blue skinned. Yeah, like they're technically, I guess, the chapter covers are. Here's one of the memories pages, and you got the Chiss Ascendancy logo, the ugly version that they now have. That's
well, that was the old one too, wasn't it?
It was slightly more colors before.
It's
always been ugly, but they made it a different kind of ugly. When they
at least this is kind of like minimalist ugly.
I guess there's something. Well, we kind of touched on it at the start, but like this does, in a lot of ways, just fit right in as an Outbound Flight sequel. So for people who are looking for maybe a canon book to start with, I think this one might be a good connection and jump off point that kind of highlights that in both series.
Oh, the new logo doesn't have the gradient anymore. Oh
Yeah.
no!
Yeah.
To be honest, the gradient looks really bad. Oh, I got a quick question. Are you going to use any of the new Chiss ships in Thrawn's Revenge?
Just probably the name references and like the name lists that come up when you hover over stuff. I think that's probably what that's going to be. So that'd be pretty epic.
Okay.
More information coming soon to a galaxy.
Also, how happy must the Chiss have been to have had Thrawn offer to fake exile himself from the Ascendancy? They must have been happy with that.
Yeah, I feel like that solves everyone's problems pretty well. So good job, Thrawn. You're learning.
Has it was Park who did that, right? Is it still Park in canon?
Yeah, I think Park finds him, but whereas in Legends it was a Victory Star Destroyer, in canon it's a Venator that Strike Fast has.
Oh, what's the point?
Venators are cooler. is the point,
I
allegedly.
think like I don't remember Park doing anything after that in canon. Like I think he's kind of just been
Yeah, I don't think he's shown up
because
again.
in Legends he goes and forms the Empire of the Hand, right? Or helps
Yeah,
form.
he's like kind of the steward for the Empire of the Hand after Thrawn's like,
He's
I'm
like
gonna run out
he's
for
the old man
groceries.
in Thrawn trilogy, right?
Yeah, yeah, because like Thrawn's like, I'm just gonna run out for some smokes. I'll be back in 10, and then
BRB LOL.
Soontir involves like, he's coming back. No.
Please, Dad. So he's his dad. Park's or Thrawn's daddy. Park's Grampy.
Yeah,
Soontir Fel is little
uncle.
baby. Please, Soontir Fel's the angry teenager. If I call Thrawn daddy 3 more times, the Thrawn Stan Twitter people are just gonna accept me with open arms. We were wrong. Sorry.
You should just change your Twitter name to Daddy Thrawn.
I'll change it to Daddy Eck after my daughter's born, just for like a week.
So you're not currently Daddy Eck?
No.
Well, I guess Gus calls you Justin, so are you just gonna make your daughter call you Eck?
No, he calls me Daddy more now. He went through a phase for like 2 weeks where it was just like Kelsey. It was Kelsey. She teaches him all this bullshit. Like I'll be sleeping and the door will just fly open and I'll hear Justin, wake up, and I'm like, what? And I look down and there's just Gus standing there, fists clenched by his sides. It's like, wake up, Justin, wake up. I'm like, you're not even 2. How are you this like? How do you know all this shit? Like, Daddy. Another thing that's kind of annoying is whenever I go downstairs, he's like whenever I go to my office, he's like, Daddy's going out, and he's got a big smile on his face, like as if he wants me to leave.
Well, doesn't he like going for drives sometimes? Maybe just
He
hoping
loves
he'll
going
get
for drives. Yeah.
maybe just hoping he'll get invited along for the trip.
Gus, I would say, has listened to more Star Wars Legends audiobooks than probably I'd say like 98% of Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
No, 99.98%.
Well, is a Star Wars fan defined as anyone who just says they like the movies, or
That was
someone
the
can
issue. That's
name-
why I had to change it.
Yeah, because like if you can't name
98,
every
yeah.
clone, are you really a Star Wars fan?
Yeah.
We have a second email. We have like 10
wow.
emails to get through.
All right. Zoom, I guess.
No, let's afford each email the attention it deserves, Justin.
Sorry.
Justin, smarten up.
I will.
Like, come on, Jesus fucking Christ. I can't even read this one. You do it.
I can't. I don't have it open.
Oh. Hey, Tapcaf Transmissions. I have a 2-part question. This is from Joel Davis. Do you think it's possible to reconcile the Thrawn from new canon books with the Thrawn from Rebels? I feel like Zan goes out of his way to soften Thrawn for some of the more harsher aspects we see in Rebels. The biggest example being that in his first appearance in Season 3, it suggested Thrawn was responsible for a battle that had heavy civilian casualties, while the original Thrawn book retconned that to be more Governor Price. And a second part is if it's likely that Dave Filoni is going to go ahead and wrap up Thrawn's story in television media, be it live action or animated. Do you think they'll try to combine the 2 Thrawns? So I think the second one we kind of talked about our opinions on when he'll show up again, and we're kind of up in the air on that. But
I think
do you
he probably will wrap it up. I don't think Timothy's going to get the chance, unfortunately.
So what do you think about the idea of 2 Thrawns, not through cloning?
I think probably Timothy Zahn does whatever he wants with the character, and he's had to be a bit more deferential when it comes to TV shows, but he'll make things work the way he wants it to.
Yeah. And
I think yeah.
Go ahead. Finish.
I was just saying, I do think that TV Thrawn is definitely a bit crueler than book Thrawn.
Yeah, like there's kind of this divergence between like Thrawn trilogy Thrawn and then later Thrawn from Zan as well, where he tries to soften it and make him a more sympathetic character. So and you get this with every character where the different portrayals by different people is going to be different. That's kind of just, it comes with the territory of having that many people working on it, and when even the original author's interpretation of the character does evolve over time. So it doesn't bother me that much. I do think there's a kind of significant difference, but
Yep.
I enjoy Thrawn in Rebels as well. I think he's a
Me
fun
too.
villain. And I think he's like reasonably close to what you'd expect Thrawn to be, especially considering that it's like a cartoon where like by the end of the 30 minutes or the season he has to be defeated in some way and has to be the villain.
Yeah, and when you write a protagonist, it's just a bit easier to make him softer too, especially if it's a Star Wars book. Yeah, good question. Let's move on. I don't have it open, so you're going to have to read it, Corey, because I'm a scrub.
All right. This next email is from Justin Taylor. I don't have a voice, so I can't read it either. I'll screen share to you, and then you... Thrawn question, so how much of the old Legends Chiss content has basically been brought over wholesale to give Zen... given Zen as the one writing?
I think we covered that pretty well.
Yeah. What was it like in Legends with the Force for Chiss? We kind of covered that as well. And yeah, so a lot of the rest of the Thrawn questions there are about the Force, which we did kind of talk about.
Dude, I'm blocking Jeff from Stitcher. What the hell, man?
Do you go into the promotions and stuff?
Oh yeah, I was in.
That's your fault.
All mailboxes. Yeah, never mind. Sorry, Jeff. Sorry, bud.
Jesus Christ, dude. And Bane questions are: we can all agree that two Sith is far too few to realistically survive. What do you think would be an appropriate number of Sith?
I think the one Sith probably had it right, to be honest.
How about just the rule of not fucking murdering each other?
Yeah.
Can we just say that Lord Khan was right, maybe?
I think like two Sith just like kind of spread out probably is a good idea.
Two Sith on opposite sides of the room.
Yeah.
Maybe the best situation really was what happened, where like there was the rule of two Sith and the one Sith and the true Sith, and they were all just kind of unaware of each other.
One Sith, true Sith. Oh, what are some other Sith? Bane Sith.
Blue Sith?
There's gotta be something else.
There was the Chiss Sith Order, which was the blue Sith.
Yeah, but we gotta do better. One Sith, true Sith, Bane Sith, lost Sith.
No, that
I'll work on it.
Yeah, I think really that no matter how many how many Sith you have, they're going to be murdering each other, and if you try to have too few, they're not going to be very effective. If you have too many, they're just going to murder each other, and they're going to be like, oh, we should have fewer of this. They're hopeless.
I don't disagree.
And which Sith way of operating makes more sense to you in terms of attempting to eliminate the Jedi? I really don't think the Sith are ever going to be able to do that. And not even just because of plot armor. I think it's just like their philosophy is ineffective and dumb, and people will find books about the Jedi as long as there's Force sensitives. Something like the Jedi is going to pop up.
Yeah.
There are a few other unrelated questions there, but I think... Oh, is the Starhawk really an ugly capital ship? Because, well, it's made from Star Destroyer parts. Isn't it also made in a way where you could essentially just weld the parts of two broken ships to each other like most uglies? Because this goes back to a discussion we had on the previous episode where we called the Starhawk the closest you could get to the
It's
ugly.
not really an ugly, because I think the chief principle of an ugly is you use whatever you have on hand to make something that can just fly.
Yeah.
So, really, is the Starhawk an ugly? No, not really. I don't think.
Right, controversial stances.
Yeah.
Next we have from John, just read Plagueis, which I was made aware of thanks to you two. You are welcome. Nice. That is a public good that we've just done, Justin.
Yes, it is.
About time.
Oh, that's it? There's no question?
No. 114D immediately accepts Palpatine as his new master after Plagueis' death. Is that a conscious decision? Do droids have any sense of post-indentured life?
I think he's just very pragmatic, to be honest.
Yeah. Like you don't tell Sidious like, no, he will murder you.
Even battle droids, which have like the shittiest programming ever, have like self-preservation instincts.
Yeah, and like John asks about why he would defer to him instead of just attempting to avenge the deceased master. I think like there is a certain amount of self-preservation there, and like droids aren't just like pure mechanical if A then B in Star Wars. They tend to be like just
like
mechanical.
You just have people trying to negotiate with droids all the time. Like they had that in we saw that in Alphabet Squadron. Remember, she tries to negotiate with her droid to. Of course, you see it in Episode 7 with BB-8.
I really do think it's just like don't tell Sidious no. And
Yeah.
really, it's just like, okay, this is my job now. I serve more Sith people.
Yeah, exactly.
Another
He
question
probably knows
here.
too. He's probably had like his the Sith teachings uploaded to him, so he's like, okay, the rule 2 just happened. Let's go.
Yep. This keeps happening. I've served 67 Sith Masters now. Next question we have for this one. There is like an email for Tyler that I'm going to put aside for now because that'll probably become more relevant next week where we're talking about some Jedi Sith stuff. But next question is from Asher. What are each of your favorite What's each of your Star Wars film rankings? Okay, that's definitely something that'll probably need its own episode.
Yeah. Let's just say our favorite and least favorite.
I think that'll still get into a thing where we need.
Let's just say our favorite.
Okay, you
I know
first.
yours. Well, how about this? How about we just guess each other's favorite? Your favorite, I think, is Rogue One because you've said it multiple times.
I said it's either Rogue One or Empire Strikes Back, and they alternate.
Okay.
But your favorite is Return of the Jedi.
Yep.
I remembered because I'm a good friend.
Yep. I'm a shitty one.
Yeah.
And that's probably as good a place as any to end it, I think. I think I'm going to try to, either this week or next, get a nice list together that you guys can access of our book rankings, because we don't have one right now, and that's my fault because I lost it. So try to get one put together so you guys can access it, and we'll figure out everything else.
Yeah, because we've got a stream coming up in 15 minutes playing Fall Guys, I believe. So we need to run and go to the bathroom. I am starving. Get some food. So have to cut the questions a little bit short here.
Yep.
But
just
what do you think?
Next week we are reading book 3 of the Bane trilogy.
Darth Bane trilogy.
Yes.
Darth Angry Bane.
Yes. You can email your questions to tapcaftransmissions@gmail.com. And make sure you follow and rate 5 stars on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. We should be saying that, but we're not.
Yeah, well, even the ones that just do like thumbs up, thumbs down features, make sure you email their customer support, ask for them to implement a 1 to 5 star system on our podcast, and rate accordingly.
Mm-hmm. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.